The ruins still smoked beneath the broken sky, and the air was heavy with ash and silence. Captain Elias moved carefully through the shattered streets, his boots sinking into dust that once belonged to walls and homes. The war had ended here only hours ago, but the memory of fire and screams still lingered like shadows in the corners of his mind. He had been trained to walk past wreckage without, thought to ignore what his heart whispered and follow only orders. Yet something about this ruined place tugged at him, urging him deeper into the hollow silence. He told himself he was only scouting for survivors, though he knew the battlefield never left many alive. The silence was complete until he heard it, a soft, trembling sound, unlike the groans of the dying or the crackle of burning stone. It was faint, carried on the wind like the smallest cry. His steps slowed, his heart hammered against his ribs. He thought at first it was his mind playing tricks on him. War had a way of planting ghosts in a man's ears, but then he heard it again, a tiny, desperate whimper. He turned down a collapsed alley littered with metal shards and broken banners. His eyes searched the shadows, and there it was, a child barely taller than his knee huddled against a wall with glowing fragments scattered around its feet. The skin was pale silver, the eyes too large, too bright, not human at all. An enemy's child. The training in his mind screamed, "Leave it. This is the offspring of those who burned your cities." But his body did not move to obey. The child's tiny arms were wrapped around something pressed close to its chest, a pendant glowing with strange shifting light like stars trapped inside crystal. The glow flickered against its trembling face. Elias stood frozen, caught between instinct and duty. He should call command, report the discovery. They would see the value in capturing it, but his gut twisted. The child looked up at him, eyes wide with terror and innocence mixed together. It did not cry out or try to run. It simply stared, as if begging silently for him to choose. He bent slowly, his armor creaking as his hand reached toward it. The child flinched, but did not resist when he lifted it into his arms. Its body was light and trembling. Its skin was cold, as if it had been lying there for hours. Elias held it awkwardly, not like a soldier holding a prisoner, but like a man holding a fragile life. He whispered without meaning to, "You're safe now." His voice surprised him. The pendant in the child's grasp glowed brighter at the light, pulsing against his chest as if answering his words. Elias looked around, suddenly aware of how wrong this was. If anyone from his unit saw him, they would think he had lost his mind. No soldier carried the enemy's child. They left such things for the scavengers, or worse yet, he could not place it back on the ground. Something deeper than orders pressed him forward. The ruins groaned as wind pushed through broken beams somewhere. In the distance, metal shifted and cracked. Elias tightened his grip on the child, feeling a weight heavier than armor settle on him. The child's eyes closed, as if trusting him completely. He took a step back toward his ship, but a chill ran down his spine. It was the feeling every soldier knew, the sense of being watched. He scanned the ruins, the shadows between broken walls. His hand went to his weapon, but the silence gave no answer. Only the smoke swirled thick and restless, yet the cry he had first heard had stopped, replaced by a deeper silence, as though the ruins themselves were holding their breath. He turned quickly, carrying the child against his chest. He told himself he was rescuing it as a trophy, perhaps as evidence, but his heart knew he was lying with every step. He felt the glow of the pendant against his armor, like a heartbeat that was not his own. And as he walked into the smoke away from the ruins, he could not shake the feeling that unseen eyes followed him. Every moment, watching, waiting, and judging the choice he had made. The smoke was fading behind him, but the weight in Elias's arms seemed to grow heavier. With every step, the child had fallen silent, its small silver fingers still clutching the glowing pendant as though it was its only lifeline. His mind raced with questions, none of which had answers. What was he supposed to do with it? Its orders had been simple: clear, burn. The ruins, retrieve technology, leave no survivors. Yet here he was, carrying the one survivor that should never have been touched. The battlefield stretched around him like a graveyard of giants. Ships lay broken across the horizon, their twisted skeletons still smoldering. He moved quickly, but every sound made him tense. The crunch of rubble under his boots, the hiss of cooling metal, the faint whine of wind slipping through jagged steel. His instincts told him he was being followed, but the ruins were too vast, too quiet to be sure. He reached the outskirts, where his small landing craft waited, hidden beneath the shadow of a collapsed tower. The craft's hull was scarred from the fight, but still functional. The ramp hissed open, and he stepped inside. The familiar scent of metal and oil wrapped around him. But instead of relief, he felt only unease. He set the child gently on the seat by the wall. Its eyes opened, glowing faintly with that strange, alien light. Elias crouched in front of it, trying to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The child watched him unblinking, silent, as though it understood his confusion. The pendant flickered softly, as if alive. The cum panel on the wall crackled to life, breaking the silence. A voice sharp and commanding came through. Captain Elias, report status. His chest tightened. He reached for the panel, but stopped, his gaze flicking to the child. If he spoke truth, the mission would end with cold orders that would condemn the small being before him. If he lied, he would brand himself a traitor. His hand trembled before he forced words out. Hull damage minor, no survivors found, continuing search. The lie hung heavy in the air. His pulse thudded in his ears. The voice on the cum answered, copy. Proceed to grid 7 and await further instructions. Elias released the switch and exhaled. He turned back to the child, who was still watching him with those wide, luminous eyes. It lifted the pendant and pushed it toward him, as if offering. He hesitated, then touched the glowing surface. The light surged through his fingers, not painful, but deep and strange. It felt like a voice speaking without sound, a whisper that brushed against the edges of his mind. He pulled back sharply, breath caught in his throat. The child tilted its head as if waiting. Elias rubbed his temples, muttering, "This is insane." He paced the small cabin, trying to think of a way out. Every direction led to disaster. If command discovered his secret, he was finished. If the enemy found out he had their child, he was already marked. The sense of being watched returned stronger than before. He stepped to the viewport and scanned the ruins beyond. For a moment he saw nothing but smoke and twisted beams. Then movement, a shadow shifting unnaturally against the light. His stomach knotted. He knew then that someone or something was hunting him. The child seemed to sense it, to its small frame tensed, and it clutched the pendant tighter. A soft hum rose from it, the glow intensifying like a shield waiting to awaken. Elias whispered, "You're not safe here." He moved quickly, strapping himself into the pilot's chair and powering up the engines. The hum of the craft rose, filling the cabin. The child sat quietly, its gaze never leaving him as the craft lifted from the ground. Elias could not shake the thought that he was no longer just a soldier completing orders. He was a man carrying a secret that could ignite something far greater than a single ruined battlefield. And as the shadows of the ruins fell away beneath him, he knew without doubt that someone was following his trail, and that the choice he had made in the ruins was only the beginning of something that could not be undone. The engines burned steady as Elias steered the craft through the ash-filled sky. But his mind was anything but steady. He kept glancing at the small figure strapped into the seat across from him, as if expecting it to vanish or transform into something monstrous. The child remained still, its luminous eyes fixed on the viewport, watching the black horizon, as though it understood where they were going. Elias clenched the controls tighter. He had lied to his commanders for the first time in his career, and the weight of that decision pressed heavier than the battlefield smoke still clinging to his uniform. He told himself it was temporary, that he only needed time to figure out what the child represented, but deep down, he knew he had crossed a line. There was no going back. The cum crackled again. Elias muted it quickly, pretending not to hear. The sound made the child stir its fingers, brushing the glowing pendant it wore. The soft hum filled the cabin again, and for a moment Elias felt a calm wash over him, like the whispering voice was trying to reach him again. He shook it off, jaw tight. He could not let himself be pulled into alien tricks. He had fought these beings, seen what they were capable of, yet now one of their young was sitting helpless in his ship, and instead of destroying it, he was protecting it. He cursed under his breath and focused on the dark expanse ahead. A sharp alarm rang across the controls. A ship was trailing them far behind, but closing fast. His blood went cold. He knew who it was. Not pirates, not scavengers, but something worse. The enemy mother. The thought struck him hard. He had heard whispers of alien matriarchs, those who could sense their young across distances, who would tear through fleets. To reclaim them, if she was following him, it meant she knew exactly what he carried, and she would not stop. Elias pushed the thrusters, his craft jolting forward, but the scanner showed the pursuing ship matching every move. The child pressed its hands against the viewport, its lips moving without sound. Elias frowned, leaning closer. Did it know what hunted them? Did it understand what danger they were in? Suddenly the pendant flared, the glow spreading across the child's hands and pulsing. Through the cabin, the hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls. Elias gritted his teeth, trying to keep control of the ship, but at the same time, he felt something seep into him. Thoughts not his own. Sharp images flashing across his mind, an alien. Figure tall, armored eyes burning with fury, a mother's voice crying out in anguish, and then himself standing as a shadow between them. His heart pounded. He ripped his hands from the glow and gasped, chest heaving. He stared at the child, who was now breathing hard as if the effort had drained it. The glow dimmed to a faint flicker. Elias swallowed hard, realizing what the pendant had shown him. It was not just a trinket. It was a beacon, a link between the child and the one who was chasing. Then his stomach twisted. He was carrying the very signal that guided the hunter to him. The scanner beeped again. The pursuing ship was closer, closing in with terrifying speed. Elias muttered, Think he couldn't hand the child over, but he couldn't outrun the alien mother forever. The only option was to outsmart her. He dove the craft into the debris field of a destroyed battleship. Twisted metal stretching for miles like a graveyard, he weaved through the wreckage, engines straining. As shards of steel scraped against the hull, sparks filled the cabin. The child held tight to the straps, eyes wide but silent. Elias could feel the predator behind them, pressing closer, forcing him deeper into the field. The chase was relentless, finally. With a desperate breath, he cut the engines. The ship drifted silent among the wreckage. The scanner flickered, showing the enemy ships slowing, searching. He prayed the field would hide them. The child closed its eyes, clutching the pendant tight. Glow dimmed almost completely, as if it too was trying to hide. Elias sat in the silence, every muscle tense, listening to the faint groan of broken metal around them. For long minutes nothing happened. Then a shadow loomed across the viewport, massive, dark and unmistakable. The enemy mothership had found them. Elias froze, hand hovering over the thrusters, his breath shallow. He knew she was out there waiting, and the child in his arms was the only reason she had not already torn him apart. Silence inside the wreck drift was crushing, and Elias could feel the weight of every second pressing harder against his chest. The enemy ship hovered outside, a monstrous silhouette against the shattered metal graveyard. Its hull bristled with weapons, far stronger than anything his small craft could carry, yet the alien mother did not fire. She lingered like a predator circling a wounded prey, her patience more terrifying than open attack. Elias gripped the controls, sweat beading on his forehead. He told himself he had to move, that staying still would get them both killed, but his instincts screamed to wait to see what she would do. The child in the seat across from him had curled tighter around the pendant, its little hands trembling as the faint light pulsed against its chest. Elias knew now. The glow was not random. It was a signal. It was a bond. And the enemy mother was following it like a hawk in the dark. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat and wondered if he had made the biggest mistake of his life by not leaving the child behind in the ruins. But then he looked at it again, fragile, small, not understanding the war raging around it. He felt his hands tighten, not on the trigger, but on the thought of protecting it. Suddenly, the cums crackled alive, and a sound filled the cabin, a voice unlike any he had ever heard. It was deep, resonant, but not in human language. Yet his mind somehow caught its meaning. You carry what is mine, give it back and live. Elias felt his blood run cold. The mother was not just hunting him. She was speaking directly to him, reaching through channels. His system was not even tuned, for he stared at the blinking cum as though it might explode. He wanted to answer, to scream back at her, to demand why, but his throat locked. The child looked up, its luminous eyes glistening as if it too understood the voice. It whispered softly, one word barely human, but clear enough. Mother. Elias shuddered. The connection between them was undeniable, and he was trapped in the middle. His hands shook over the controls. He could not hand the child over. It was not just fear of betrayal from his commanders or death at her claws. It was something deeper, something he could not explain. He had seen the horror of war, and now in his hands he held the only piece of innocence that had survived from the other side. The alien mother spoke again, her voice colder this time. "Do not test me, human. You cannot hide forever," he realized. She was right, the wreck field would only cover them for so long, and when she tired of waiting, she would rip it apart piece by piece. His mind raced, options spiraled, none safe, none certain. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. He turned to the child and muttered, "What are you? What do you want from me?" But the child only held the pendant tighter, as though waiting. Elias cursed softly and powered the engines again. The sudden hum filled the silence. Betraying their position, the enemy ship shifted immediately, its massive shadow moved closer, scanning the debris with beams of sharp light. Elias gritted his teeth and pushed forward. Weaving through the jagged wrecks again, his ship rattled and scraped, but he pressed harder. The enemy mother's voice cut through again. "Furious now? Do not make me take it from your dying hands." Elias ignored her, though his pulse thundered in his ears. He darted into a broken hangar of the ruined battleship, using it as cover. The walls closed around him, scraping sparks against the hull until finally he killed the engines again. The dark swallowed them. He held his breath, waiting, scanning. The child's pendant flickered once, twice, then dimmed again. Elias whispered harshly, "Stop that light, do you hear me? She will find us." But the child only stared at him, its eyes shimmering with something he could not name. The coms stayed quiet this time. The enemy ship searching outside like a beast sniffing at the cracks. Elias waited, his heart pounding, until at last the scanner showed her drifting past, but he knew it was not over. She had not given up. She was hunting, and she would come again. The thought dug into him, colder than space itself. He was not only hunted, he was being tested. The alien mother had spoken, and she had made a promise she would not stop until he gave the child back, or until one of them was destroyed. Elias sat in the dead hangar, his chest rising and falling in shallow bursts, every sound amplified inside the hollow metal carcass of the battleship. The child had finally stopped, glowing, its pendant resting dim against its chest, but Elias knew that meant little. The alien mother had found them once. She would find them again. She had patience, time, and power, while he had none. He ran a hand through his damp hair, muttering curses under his breath. His ship could barely take another chase, and the hangar walls would not hold against a full assault. He felt like a rat cornered by something far beyond human. The child stirred softly, breaking the silence. It leaned toward him, its voice small but steady. "You will not give me back, Elias." Turned sharply, his eyes searched the little alien's face, and for a moment he almost forgot it was the blood of his enemy. He saw only fear, innocence, something he had not seen in years of war. He whispered, I should give you back before she kills us both." The child's luminous eyes did not blink. It shook its head slowly. "No, she wants more." Elias frowned, confused, "More than you." The child clutched the pendant and whispered words he could barely hear, something about blood, something about memory. He realized then that the mother's demand was not simply about love or reunion. There was something hidden, something far darker. She was not just hunting for her child. She was hunting for whatever the child carried inside. Elias's chest tightened. He had carried classified cargo orders, weapons for his commanders. But never had he carried something like this, a living, breathing key to a mystery he did not understand. Leaned forward and hissed, "Tell me, what does she want?" But the child only trembled and whispered a single word. "Freedom." Elias's breath caught in his throat. Freedom. It echoed in his mind. Twisting with every scar from war, he thought of Earth's camps, the fields of bodies, the soldiers who had died chained to orders that never made sense. Maybe the child's freedom, this was not so different from his own wish that comes. It crackled again, and the alien mother's voice filled the cabin, low and sharp. "You think you protect it, you only delay. Its pain, give it back, or suffer what you cannot imagine." Elias slammed his fist against the console. "Shut up," he barked, though he knew she could not hear his fury. He turned to the child and said, "If I keep you, she will kill us both. If I give you back, she will destroy me anyway, so what do I do?" The child did not answer. It only reached out, tiny trembling fingers touching his hand. Elias froze at the warmth. He had expected cold alien skin, but instead it felt almost human, fragile and real. His anger broke into something heavier, something dangerous. Hope. He clenched his jaw and made his choice. He whispered, "Then we run." He powered the engines again, the hangar shaking as metal groaned around them. The scanners screamed warning lights. As his small craft forced through debris back into the open void, almost instantly beams of light ripped across the dark. The enemy mother had been waiting. Elias gritted his teeth and dodged one, then another. His ship trembled, but held. He pushed faster, spinning the controls, weaving through broken holes and burning fragments. The alien ship followed, relentless shadows stretching across every angle. She could outgun him, outlast him, but she had not destroyed him yet, and that was something. Elias clung to his breath, came hard sweat rolling down his back as the chase dragged on. The child clung to its seat, eyes wide, its pendant flickering again, not with fear, but with some strange rhythm as though answering to a call. Elias saw it glow. Brighter and brighter until suddenly his scanners twitched, picking up an anomaly, a faint signal, a hidden passage through the wreck. He realized then the child was guiding him. Its light was a map, a way through what seemed impossible. He followed. Sharp turn after sharp turn, scraping the hull against jagged metal but surviving. The enemy ship roared closer, beams tearing apart debris just behind him. Yet somehow, Elias kept ahead. He dove deeper into the wreck until the darkness swallowed even. The alien mother's light, the first time since it began, she faltered, unable to squeeze her massive vessel through the narrow path. Elias gasped, relief flooding his chest. He had slipped her grip, for now the child's pendant dimmed once more. As if it had spent itself, Elias looked at it. Trembling in exhaustion, he whispered, "What are you leading me to?" But even before the child answered, he knew the truth. He was no longer running blindly. He was being pulled toward something. The alien mother feared enough to hunt with all her might, and Elias understood with dread, and wondered both that his nightmare had only just begun. Elias floated in the silence of the wreck, his hands still trembling on the controls. The chase had ended, but the echo of the alien mother's voice remained inside his head, like claws scraping at his skull. He glanced at the child resting in the co-pilot's seat, its eyelids half shut, the pendant on its chest pulsing faintly like a weak heartbeat. He knew they had no time to rest, yet something deep inside told him this was the calm before a storm. The wreck around them was ancient, older than human maps, older, perhaps, than even the war itself. Twisted towers of metal stretched in every direction. Broken like the ribs of a giant creature, Elias guided his ship deeper, its sensors flickering and then failing entirely. It was as if the wreck itself swallowed technology and left him blind. Only the glow of the child's pendant showed the way. The light seemed to know where to go. Bending toward corridors hidden by shadows, Elias followed, unease tightening in his gut. He muttered to himself, half to stay sane, half to fill the silence. What am I doing? Where am I letting this thing lead me? The child stirred and spoke with a voice softer than a whisper. She doesn't want me to return. She wants what is inside. Elias glanced at it sharply. His knuckles whitened on the controls. He hissed, "What's inside you? Tell me now." The child's eyes glimmered like twin stars, and for a moment Elias saw something vast behind them, like a sky that stretched forever. He shivered, but before he could speak again, the wreck shifted, groaned, as if alive, and a section of the hull cracked open, revealing a hidden chamber inside. Elias's jaw tightened. He knew instinct screamed at him not to enter, yet the pendant burned brighter, pulling them toward it. He pushed the ship through the opening and entered. The chamber was colossal, filled with rows of alien structures, tall and humming faintly as if they had been asleep for ages. The child sat upright, its small hands pressed to the glass, its eyes wide with recognition. Elias muttered, "Where the hell are we?" The child whispered, "My people called." This place, the cradle. Elias frowned. The cradle of what the answer came not from the child, but from the chamber itself. A deep vibration shook the ship, a sound so low it made his bones ache. Lights flickered to life along the walls, glowing with the same hue as the child's pendant. Elias's breath caught as he realized they were standing in the center of something not dead but dormant, something waking. The child leaned back, eyes filled with something Elias could not read: fear, awe, destiny. Then the "Come!" screamed. The alien mother's voice thundered back into his ears, filled with rage and urgency. "Do not let it open, human. Do not let the cradle awake." Elias froze. He had expected threats, not fear, for the first time. her voice did not sound like a predator's roar, but like someone desperate. Elias whispered to himself, "What is she afraid of?" The child turned to him, clutching the pendant against its chest, and whispered, "She is afraid of me." Elias's stomach twisted. He looked again. At the endless chamber lights rippling like stars across the walls, he felt small and powerless, caught in a war he could not begin to understand. Yet somehow he was already part of it. The alien mother's ship would find a way inside sooner or later. He had moments at best. His choices closed around him like steel. He could hand over the child and maybe survive. He could run again, though he had nowhere left to hide. Or he could do the unthinkable and follow the path the pendant lit, no matter where it led. He closed his eyes, breathing slow. He remembered the warmth of the child's hand against his, the word it had spoken. Freedom. He opened his eyes. "Steady now," he whispered. "Then let's finish this." He gripped the controls and steered deeper into the cradle, even as alarms screamed and the wreck shook around him. Somewhere beyond the metal walls, the alien mother howled in fury. Somewhere within the chamber, something ancient woke. Elias knew with a heavy heart that his decision had tied his fate to the child forever. There was no turning back now. The cradle trembled around him as if the ancient wreck itself had taken a breath. Elias felt the vibrations crawl through the hull of his ship and into his bones. The lights along the chamber walls pulsed brighter and brighter until the shadows were burned away, leaving only endless rows of glowing towers, each one alive, each one watching. The child pressed its hands to the glass, its eyes shining with the same light. Elias whispered, "What are they?" "Light." The child tilted its head as if listening. Two voices Elias could not hear. Finally it answered, "They are memories. My people placed them here to keep them safe." Elias frowned. Memories, these things look like weapons. The child shook its head, slow and grave. "Not weapons, but if awakened, they can become more than memories. They can shape what is to come." Elias's heart slammed in his chest. He wanted to believe he misheard, because the word shape carried too much weight, too much danger. Before he could ask more, the ship rocked violently. Terrible screech filled the chamber as metal tore open from above. The alien mother's vessel had forced its way inside. Elias grabbed the controls, cursing as the shadow of her craft fell across the chamber. Her voice filled the air, sharp like a blade. "You dare awaken the cradle, human, hand over the child before you destroy us all." The child trembled at her words, pressing against Elias as though seeking shelter for a moment. Elias nearly faltered, the instinct to surrender rising like a tide. The mother's voice carried a truth he could feel in his gut. Whatever lay here was dangerous, dangerous enough even she feared it. He clenched his teeth and whispered to himself, "Ow. No running now, not anymore." He looked down at the child and asked, "Do you trust me?" The child's glowing eyes locked on his, and after a long silence it nodded once. That was enough. Elias pushed the ship lower, weaving through the glowing towers. The mother's vessel followed, beams of energy lancing past his hull. Shaking his ship with every near miss, the child raised its pendant high, and the towers answered, their light flaring brighter and brighter until they formed a path. Like stars leading him deeper, Elias followed it even as his sensors fried under the pressure. The mother screamed again, her fury echoing in the chamber. "Fool, you will kill us all," Elias shouted back. "Through the comes, then. Why are you chasing us? Why are you afraid?" He expected no answer, but her silence told him everything. She was not chasing to save him, she was chasing to control him. Gosh. The ship rattled violently as another blast tore across his flank. Sparks filled the cockpit. Elias barely kept control. The child suddenly leaned forward, placing its tiny hand over the console. Its voice, low, steady, spoke 3 words, "Not yet ready." The ship jerked sharply, but not from damage. Something unseen had caught it. The towers around them pulsed in perfect rhythm, and Elias realized the cradle itself had answered the child's call. The ship slowed, but it was not his doing. He looked around with dread. The walls shifted open like an enormous eye watching him. The mother's vessel halted above, unwilling to descend further. Elias felt her hesitation as keenly as his own. "Heartbeat," the child whispered. "She cannot enter. She is bound by oath." Elias's brow furrowed. "What oath?" The child's face softened with something that looked like sorrow. "She swore never to awaken what sleeps." Elias stared at the rows of towers and realized this was no battlefield, no tomb. It was a prison built not to keep enemies out, but to keep something in. And now the lock was turning. He closed his eyes for a breath, his mind racing. He was no soldier, no hero, just a man who had survived too many wars, and yet here he was, caught between a desperate mother and innocent child, and something so ancient it made both seem small. The child pressed the pendant to his chest and whispered again, soft but firm. Choose. Elias felt the weight of the word heavier than any weapon. He opened his eyes and saw the truth. He could run, leave this cradle sealed, and hope the mother let him go. He could hand the child back and perhaps live with the guilt, or he could take the path no sane man would, and open the cradle, fully knowing it might end not just him, but everything he breathed. Once steady, as the chamber rumbled louder, he whispered to himself, no more running. He pushed his hands to the controls and followed the light. Deeper, the mother's voice cracked across the coms in fury and fear. Human, stop. Elias ignored her. His path was set, his fate bound to the child's. Whatever slept in the cradle was waking, and he would face it first. The chamber roared around him, as if the entire world had chosen that moment to wake from a long nightmare. The towers pulsed with a rhythm too precise to be random, each surge of light stronger than the last, until Elias felt the vibrations travel through his ribs like a second heartbeat. The child clung to him, its eyes glowing so brightly that he could hardly look into them without flinching. The ship shuddered as if caught between two forces, one dragging him forward and another trying to hold him back. The alien mother's vessel hovered above the chamber, silent now, watching, not firing anymore. Elias wondered if even she realized the moment had gone beyond her control. He shouted over the noise to the child, "What is happening?" The child's voice was calm to calm. For the chaos surrounding them, it is choosing. Elias frowned. What is choosing? The cradle. The child whispered, it decides if you are worthy. Elias gritted his teeth. He had not asked for any of this. Not the war, not the child, not the burden of being tested by something that had slept for thousands of years. He was just a man trying to survive. And yet here he was, at the heart of something that could change not just his life, but the galaxy itself. The towers leaned inward like great trees bowing to a storm, their light converging until a single massive beam tore through the floor ahead. The beam split open the metal ground, revealing a void so deep that Elias felt his stomach drop. He could not see the bottom, only an endless pit of light. Spiraling downward, the child pointed. We must go. Elias shook his head. Are you insane? That thing will tear us apart. But the child's voice carried no doubt. Trust it. He swallowed hard, sweat burning his eyes before he angled the ship toward the glowing pit. The ship resisted its systems, screaming warnings, but Elias pushed forward, engines roaring as he plunged into the spiral. The light swallowed them whole. For a moment there was nothing but silence. Then Elias found himself drifting in a place that was not space, not sky, not ground. The cockpit windows showed a horizon that stretched into infinity, with stars bending in ways his mind could barely comprehend. The child looked at him with steady eyes and whispered softly, "This is the heart of the cradle." Elias felt small, smaller than he had ever felt in his life. He had seen warships tear planets apart, seen men reduced to dust and steel to ash, but this was different. This was not destruction, this was creation waiting. A voice filled the space, not through speakers, not through sound, but through his very bones. It was neither male nor female, neither kind nor cruel. It simply was. Carry the child of your enemy, it said. Why? Elias's throat was dry, but he forced the words out, because no child deserves to die because of a war they did not start. The voice was silent for a long moment, as if considering. Then it asked, "And would you protect this child, even if it cost your own life?" Elias glanced at the child, and then back into the infinite light. His answer was simple. Yes. The silence deepened, then the voice thundered again. "Then you are not like the others. You may carry what comes next." Elias wanted to ask what that meant, but the light exploded around him in a storm of stars. The ship lurched violently, then steadied. The child pressed its small hands against his and whispered, "It accepted you." When the windows cleared, he saw he was no longer in the chamber, no longer inside the cradle. His ship drifted above a strange planet, one he had never seen before. The alien mother's vessel hovered close by, silent. The cradle itself was gone, collapsed back into the void as if it had never been. The mother's voice finally returned to the coms. But it was different, no longer sharp with fury, but heavy with something like defeat or awe. "You were chosen human." Elias stared at the planet below, where great rivers of light spread like veins across its surface. He felt the weight of it pressing into his chest. Chosen for what the mother hesitated, then for what is coming. The galaxy has slept too long. Elias looked at the child, who still sat at his side, eyes glowing brighter than ever, and realized there would be no going back his life. He knew it was over. He was no longer just Elias, the survivor, the wanderer. He was a keeper of something greater. He leaned back in his seat, staring at the stars above. The war between humans and her kind suddenly felt small compared to what he had. Touched inside the cradle, the child looked up at him and whispered, "Will you still protect me?" Elias placed a hand on the console, steadying himself before answering. Always the stars stretched endlessly before him, alive with possibilities and dangers. He could not yet imagine whatever unthinkable request the alien mother would make, whatever trials the cradle had set in motion. He knew one thing for certain: his journey was only beginning.